Now, the summer season for film, of course, is not only the most commercially successful, but undoubtedly one of the most entertaining as well. And I'm here to quickly chronicle from May through August what we have to look forward to week after week, with at least one big release coming out that I'm sure most audiences are excited to check out. The fact is that the summer movie season this year especially is proving to be one of the biggest, and let's get straight down to it with May 1st. May 1st bringing about my most anticipated film of the year, Avengers: Age of Ultron. The fact is, after having seen 10 films in this universe alone, and of course I'm going to catch up on some of them before this new film, I'm beyond invested. This is not only one of the most successful franchises of all time, one of the most beloved as well, and the trailers alone make this film look fantastic. Ultron looks incredibly menacing. The film seems to be having an interesting blend of the previous film's tone, but more so adding to that. I still distinctly remember one thing that Joss Whedon said with the interviews that he gave long before the film was even in production. That is that he wants the film to not go larger but go deeper, and I feel that using maybe Scarlet Witch and a lot of other elements within this film in order to do so would be the ideal route. And if the film is, as he mentions, deeper with regards to characters, I will be beyond satisfied. The trailers are blowing me away right now, and I can tell you that I will be there Thursday night, even before the film is released, to check the film out, and I'm beyond excited for this film, as most people are, and I'm sure you've heard a lot about that. So let's go on into films that are slightly lesser known. First off, Hot Pursuit, a film that stars Sofia Vergara and Reese Witherspoon, a weird cop comedy reminiscent of that of Heat, if you will, that I believe could actually do a good thing, one, of course, with regards to counter-programming against the Avengers, since the success of the Avengers will certainly spill over to the following weeks. This film is directed by Anne Fletcher, and from the trailer alone, it looks alright, though Anne Fletcher herself has not made necessarily the best of films, having been involved with The Guilt Trip and Step Up in the past. Moving on to May 15th, there are two big releases coming out that I believe most people should be excited about. That is Mad Max Fury Road. This is by far turning out to be the quote-unquote sleeper hit of the summer season, or at least the potential sleeper hit of the summer season, because the reviews of the film, as it's been aired at various film festivals in the past, are beyond belief. Visually, this looks like one of the most stunning things I've seen, and I feel like it's going to have its own unique tone and world. The fact that Tom Hardy, a man that wants to do, say, more serious films, wants to, of course, have a lot of awards on his mantle, has signed on to a 3-picture deal with this, obviously proves, along with Charlize Theron, of course, that this film is going to not only present something unique, but hopefully something fantastic. And the fact is that right now, from the trailers alone, a lot of people are excited. I'm not sure it's got quite the traction within the mainstream audiences. I feel like the word of mouth could certainly promote this film. It's not necessarily related to any of the films in the past with regards to the series, so you can go into this blind as well. And at the same time, it looks to be just a whole bunch of nutty, crazy fun that I think will definitely work for the summer season. Moving on, also on May 15th, Pitch Perfect 2. I haven't seen the first one, I will admit. The trailer for this one did not excite me by any means. I can imagine fans being excited for this. I do like the inclusion of Adam Devine, and I do think that Rebel Wilson has proven herself comedically, of course, but from the one trailer alone, I'm not particularly excited, and I definitely know that Mad Max is going to be the film that I'm going to be watching that weekend, certainly before Pitch Perfect 2. The following weekend, we have two big releases. First is the Poltergeist remake, which does have Sam Raimi, the director of the Spider-Man trilogy, attached as a producer. So there is some essence of credibility, I'm sure, that will be able to attract an audience, plus it being an R-rated film. The horror films tend to draw in a certain surprising amount of audience, despite the fact that people know these aren't the best of films, but they're certainly simply light-hearted, entertaining films, and I think that that will definitely add to the fact that people are going to watch this film. Of course, fans of the Poltergeist franchise will definitely be more inclined to watching this film as well. But the film I'm most looking forward to is Brad Bird's Tomorrowland. Brad Bird is the director of films such as The Iron Giant, The Incredibles, and Ratatouille, and is finally making a step outside of the animated realm right onto live action. And the fact is, this film stars George Clooney, and it tells a really intriguing tale. The fact is, I haven't seen a lot of the later trailers that give more details, but from the earlier trailers, you have a girl that is basically being released from perhaps juvenile or jail or something or the other happened. Well, she didn't technically go to jail, but she has obviously been in some form of trouble with regards to the law. And as she's leaving, she's handed a pin by one of the policemen who believes that it is her property. She touches it, and she's suddenly transported to this other world of Tomorrowland, this beautiful looking futuristic world, while of course a bit of marketing for Disney here and there, irrespective, looks to be something wherein from a production and cinematography perspective alone can be incredibly unique. The following weekend also has two big releases that people are going to have to look out for. The first is San Andreas, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Pretty much a disaster film to some degree, having this large earthquake take place and The Rock having to save people from that. Essentially, you'd see The Rock face off against someone like you did in Furious 7. This is more just against nature. It looks a lot like 2012 in some sense, just being, a basic disaster film. But I do get the feeling that people are going to watch this film. The Rock will certainly add that quality of this film being a lot of fun, and I think his personality is something that will draw a lot of people into the film and obviously add to its quality, something I'm hoping to see. Furthermore, the film Aloha comes out the very same weekend, directed by Cameron Crowe. The fact is, apart from the cast, there's not much of a draw to this film. You have Bradley Cooper, Emma Stone, Rachel McAdams, Bill Murray, Jay Baruchel, John Krasinski, Alec Baldwin, and even Danny McBride, a fantastic cast of people. And this is produced by producer Scott Rudin and another man. Scott Rudin tends to do films that get nominated for, say, Best Picture at the Oscars, such as Captain Phillips and whatnot. But the trailer itself makes the film not seem of such caliber. The fact is, it seems like there was a big cast, there were a lot of great elements brought together, but it could be that case where the sum is less than the individual parts. Unfortunately, you're bringing in Academy Award nominated performers, and yet I do not get the vibe that this film is really going to deliver a whole lot. It's a strange kind of love story. It could be unique, it could appeal to some, but I do not believe it's going to be of the caliber one would expect. Moving to June 5th has three big releases out in the first week of June. Of course, that is June 5th. First off, the film I'm most excited to see and the one I will be there for, Entourage. Now, after having seen 8 seasons of the show, I can't help but say that I have to watch the film, but I really did enjoy the show, blending beautifully drama and comedy and showcasing this lifestyle, something that could have gone so wrong and been so overdone 8 seasons in. While the show isn't described as the most consistent by people, I do feel like it did get better. It did peak towards the middle somewhat, but it really didn't drop off much after. It's a fantastic show with a unique set of characters. My only worry is that the trailer had to show off a lot of the cameos that take place, taking out the element of surprise that existed in the show, which of course is a good marketing gimmick, if you will, or at least great from a marketing standpoint. But I do believe that for fans of the show, which at this point there aren't so many that are going to make their budget and a whole lot of profit back, so I do believe it was a good marketing strategy on their part. But at the same time, the first trailer didn't excite me all that much, and I'm hoping it's more than just an extended episode of the film, that it really does deliver a far greater emotional arc, although to see these characters come together once again would be nothing short of spectacular. Moving on, Insidious Chapter 3 is coming out. The first two films were, of course, big successes, so to have this film coming out directed by Lee Whannell, of course, who made the Saw films and, of course, had a big hand in the original two as well. This film doesn't look particularly exciting from the trailers. It's borderline laughable from a horror perspective, which is unfortunate, but it's going to be a success nonetheless. It's going to draw in a lot of audiences. It's just that, for me personally, this is not the film to see this weekend at all. However, there are 3 unique audiences being appealed to this weekend. There's those that have seen Entourage that are more in for a comedy. There's those that want to be scared and go in for more of a horror film, an R-rated film. Well, Entourage will be R-rated too, but the third film coming out that weekend will appeal to those who love Melissa McCarthy. Another R-rated film, in fact, Spy, which stars Melissa McCarthy, of course, and a whole bunch of other funny people telling this interesting tale that will, of course, be somewhat of a parody of the spy genre, but I do feel a bit of a sense of a worry, considering the fact that it's being made by Paul Feig, which is great because he made films such as Bridesmaids and The Heat that were very well received and, in fact, great films. The fact is, though, Melissa McCarthy lately, with regards to Tammy and a lot of other films she's done, hasn't necessarily been up to the mark that we'd expect her to be. Yet, I do feel in the hands of Paul Feig, this film could really deliver. The trailers wasn't so bad, so I'm certainly looking forward to it. June 12th, Jurassic World, and this is undoubtedly going to be the big attraction of the month, I think. And Chris Pratt is in the film. Chris Pratt is certainly one of the up-and-coming, who's probably up-and-come now, probably one of the biggest stars and biggest names in Hollywood today. So to have him be in the film is nothing short of an attraction. For me, at least, I'm a big fan of everything he's done. I do hope, however, that they can actually make him do something outside his comfort zone, not necessarily be Star-Lord or Andy Dwyer from Parks and Recreation, and yet try and blend in a lot of who he is. I think he's great when he's infusing a lot of who he is in the film, but yeah, this character does seem a bit off from that, so I want to see how they manage to blend this, because this film does seem far more serious, and I have more dearth with regards to its tone. So to have Jurassic World come about after the success of the franchise, Jurassic Park was, and still probably is, one of the most beloved films of all time. The second one wasn't as loved, and the third one was more of a drop-off. So to have Colin Trevorrow do this, of course, who made a great hit, an underestimated hit, and certainly a film that should be spoken about a lot more, that is Safety Not Guaranteed, does give a lot of people hope in this sci-fi horror film. However, I'm not 100% sold on the trailers yet. There are a lot of films in the month of June alone that I'm far more excited to see. I will be there for Jurassic World, but I feel like when I watch it, I will either be like, oh, it was just as I expected, or I will be blown away. I do not by any means think it's going to be a bad film, but I feel like if it's going to be as expected, I'm going to be like, okay, that was as expected, it was good, it was fun, was it amazing, or it could absolutely knock my socks off, which is certainly what I'm hoping it does. The following weekend has a couple of films coming out. The big film, of course, Inside Out, a film that I actually did a video on just recently that really showcases my excitement for the film after having the director of the film, Pete Docter, speak about it. Inside Out is Pixar's next film. They took a break in 2014 to not have a Pixar film, something they haven't done since 2005. So it's been a long time. We've been getting a lot of Pixar films lately. The track record peaked obviously with Toy Story 3 in 2010, has been a little bit of a drop-off ever since. I'm a huge fan of Monster University myself, but the point is that this film, not just word from Pixar or from a lot of other inside sources, but even from what I've seen so far, which includes the opening scene, I believe will be amongst Pixar's best and will reinstate the faith that most people used to have in the franchise, that is the brand name of Pixar. I cannot wait for this film that tells a story of the 5 different emotions in our head and really appeal to the universality of those emotions of sadness, joy, anger, disgust, and a 5th emotion of fear, portrayed in fact by Bill Hader. Moving on to June 26th, there is a film called Max coming out that is a family film about a dog that you would expect to see every once in a while in the summer, as well as another film called The Outskirts that's supposed to be a comedy that will star Victoria Justice, but we don't know an awful lot about. But the big comedy of that weekend, and probably one of the most anticipated comedies of the year by most, not me though, is Ted 2. I liked Ted somewhat. I had fun with it. It had a lot of problems. It appealed to me not 100% of the running time through. Like, there were some jokes that were fantastic and there were others that really didn't connect with me at all. And Seth MacFarlane's further directorial repertoire, if you will, with A Million Ways to Die in the West was not... It did not live up to Ted, and Ted isn't a whole lot to live up to. I was really disappointed with that film. So to see this, I'm less excited. There are a lot of gags in the trailer that did not make me laugh at all, unlike the original Ted, which had a lot of things in the film that made me laugh even in the trailer. This trailer didn't even excite me, which is a bit of a problem, especially when they tend to showcase some of the best of what they have in the trailers alone. There are some very crude jokes here and there, of course expected, but I do not believe that this film would live up to the original. I feel like it's a little quick, and I'm very skeptic about the film, which is unfortunate because 2 years ago I would have been beyond excited for a Seth MacFarlane directed film. But after what he's been doing, I cannot show such enthusiasm. Let's move on to July. In fact, July 1st, a Wednesday, because of the 4th of July weekend, you're going to have a lot of releases from Wednesday on. There are two big films competing for the money. That is Magic Mike XXL and Terminator Genisys. Magic Mike XXL is, of course, a sequel to the original Magic Mike, which will not star Matthew McConaughey this time, that to the disappointment of some. Still have Joe Manganiello and Channing Tatum. I have not seen the first film myself, but the buzz on that film is a huge surprise. People would expect it to be a stripper film, a film that's, you know, basically there to attract women to watch the film, but that's really not the case from what I've heard. The fact is, it seems to have a really interesting tale behind it, and fantastic performances by Matthew McConaughey and Channing Tatum. This film seems to blend in a little bit more of the comedy aspect of the franchise, so I want to see where they go with that, but I do believe that this film would certainly deliver, though the director has changed. Moving on, we also have Terminator Genisys. Now, I'm a huge fan myself of the original two films, especially Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which is by far one of my favorite films of all time. So to have that franchise continued on, I'm excited. I like what they're doing with sort of altering the events, such as Days of Future Past did, of the original films. So that's intriguing to see. And the trailers actually got me pretty excited. I want to see Jai Courtney. I'm a fan of him, to be honest. A lot of people aren't necessarily a fan of him after Die Hard 5. Personally, I really like him as an actor. So I want to see how he can maybe take on the franchise later on. I did like the trailer. Of course, they're bringing lines like, "I'll be back" and "Come with me if you want to live." And there's going to be a lot of appealing to the nostalgia of the franchise. But at the same time, I'm very, very excited for Terminator Genisys. The 10th of July, of course, is definitely going to be something that will have a variety of films coming out, and yet definitely the biggest film, or potentially the biggest film of the summer, or at least this month, Minions. The trailer of Minions alone is something that is fantastic. I'm not a fan of the franchise, to be honest. Despicable Me, it's a fun franchise. It appeals to kids. It's very commercially successful, very commercially viable. The thing with this film, however, is the marketing itself has been so spot on, appealing to this really interesting journey through time in the teaser trailer, and making the Minions the main characters. A lot of people do not believe might have been the right choice, but I think from the trailer alone, they have proven that they are not only the most interesting characters, but certainly the characters that will really manage to bring about a great source of entertainment for 90 minutes straight. Who knows? But I think that this will not only be one of the most commercially successful films of the year, but I think that this summer for animation, with Inside Out and this, is really going to raise the bar. Moving on to July 17th, a film that often people forget is even coming out, perhaps because they're so blindsided by the Avengers coming out not too far away from now, is Marvel's Ant-Man, because the trailer of the film itself was not particularly appealing. It did not bring about the traction that Marvel would have hoped for. A lot of people were confused what the film was going to be like tonally, not necessarily meshing in the dark with the comedic too well, something that they hoped to do, of course, but something that didn't seem to be too well executed, at least in the trailer. Yet, despite the fact that there have been a lot of directorial changes with regards to Edgar Wright going off the project, of course bringing about a lesser degree of excitement amongst some, including myself, I'm still very, very excited. There's no way I'm not going to watch this movie. I will not miss this movie because of the Marvel brand name that has certainly brought about a lot of love, a lot of fan following, and definitely after Age of Ultron coming out, this film is going to be a big, massive success, because I feel like there are going to be some ties to this franchise, to this, well, sub-franchise in Age of Ultron. Moving on to July 24th, there are quite a few films coming out that I need to speak about. The first is Southpaw, a drama starring Jake Gyllenhaal, the trailer of which is getting the reputation of having shown too much. But to me personally, while it did show a lot, it didn't excite me all that much. I thought the story was very predictable, at least from what we saw within the trailer. I felt like there were directions it could have taken within the trailer. Once again, bear in mind that it didn't necessarily take. However, with the track record Jake Gyllenhaal has lately after films such as Prisoners and Enemy and his brilliant performance in Nightcrawler, I do believe that Southpaw will at the least deliver an incredible performance, something to be remembered for the year 2015. The same weekend we have Pixels, a film that is trying to appeal to the nostalgia of various 80s and 90s video games, a lot of arcade games as well, having a really interesting sounding plot. However, the trailer did not really live up to that. The thing is, within the plot alone, some might have expected for this to be a very different kind of action comedy, but we feel like the Adam Sandler aspect of it is really taking over, not allowing this to blossom as what it could have been, unfortunately. Also that weekend is Joe Wright's Pan, which will have a new actor, if you will, a new child actor as the lead character. Something that's interesting to see, something you don't see that often. It's a risk, no doubt, but it's certainly something that could pay off. Hugh Jackman is the big draw in the film, of course. While Chappie was not all that successful, I think he'll be able to help a lot more with drawing in people for Pan. He looks really interesting as Blackbeard. However, I'm not 100% sold on the trailer yet. Visually, it looks like a feast and some kind of a spectacle, but I'm not 100% sold on the fact that it will be a fantastic film. Of course, this is based on me actually not having seen the films yet, but my excitement is curbed for the film. My excitement is slightly curbed once I saw the trailer. Visually, it looks great, but I do not feel that they're going to blend the right age and maturity that they have in the visuals. I feel like it's still trying to promote and try and focus more and direct itself more towards the kids. July 31st has one big film that I'm beyond excited for that wasn't supposed to come out in July originally, and now is Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, the 5th installment of the franchise, a franchise that I believe has been getting better and better. Well, since the second film, I like the first one a little bit more than the original, but I certainly have to say that the trailer of this film showcased that one stunt towards the end with regards to Tom Cruise hanging like to the side of a plane, something that he actually did, showing the devotion in this, and yet the story that there seemed to be building around this Rogue Nation, the secret organization that's going to take out the IMF, in terms of how they've presented it, is really well done. Simple showcases of technology here and there, minor details thrown in, more Jeremy Renner as well, and really an all-round intense, fast-paced trailer. Hopefully will be reflected in the film itself. Finally, the month of August, wherein you do tend to see a bit of a drop-off in excitement as it's more of a fade into September and October with regards to these summer films, yet there are some films to really look forward to. The first that is coming out on August 7th is Fantastic Four. This is Josh Trank's reboot. A lot of problems on set, so we've heard. Not the greatest production, but I mean, there are always issues in production of films, so there is no problem there. However, the trailer of this film got me very excited. There are things with regards to who Dr. Doom is going to be, more of a computer blogger, that did turn people off. Visually, I like the way the film looks. I do feel it is a bit adaptive of a lot of other styles. I'm not necessarily sure Josh Trank has really found his own visual style yet, so you do tend to see elements of a lot of other styles and a lot of other directors and a lot of other films. Yet, however, the inclusion of Miles Teller, someone who has proven himself to no end, Michael B. Jordan, and a lot of other great actors, is something that makes me still beyond excited for the film. However, the trailer, while it appealed to me, did not appeal to everyone else. The excitement around me isn't up to the mark, but the excitement for me itself alone is certainly at a very high level. The following weekend, that is August 14th, has two films that I really need to speak about. The first is The Man from U.N.C.L.E., very reminiscent from the trailer with regards to Kingsman, which is what I think could either be a big pro in attracting a lot of people who love Kingsman, and yet a bit of a con once the film is released, since it doesn't look as good as Kingsman. And if it's not going to be as good, there's going to be a lot of comparison involved, unfortunately, for the film. Yet, however, having the inclusion of Henry Cavill, someone who, well, of course, plays Superman, is definitely going to be a big draw. Armie Hammer as well. Guy Ritchie making this film is important. Guy Ritchie has made films that have appealed to a lot of people. The Sherlock Holmes films were certainly commercial successes. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. could definitely have a very large audience, to say the least, by the end of it. But the point is that that is not the film I'm looking forward to most this weekend. The one I really want to see is Straight Outta Compton. I mean, it's the trailer that brought me over. While there was an image earlier on released of the NWA, that is a rap group, and their basic revolution that they created earlier on, probably a decade or 2 decades ago, with regards to music and how that revolution really existed and how it became something big is what I'm very intrigued in seeing. And the trailer did really throw across a vibe of it being more than just a film about music. This could have potentially been a simple film of showcasing the lifestyle of these rappers, but really focusing on the revolution, having a strangely intense amount of drama in this story, a beautiful look at it, I think could potentially have this film to be one of the best of the year so far, or one of the best of the year by the end of it. That's potentially, of course, but my God, the buzz behind this film post that first trailer is nothing short of unbelievably fantastic, and I cannot wait to see Straight Outta Compton. The following weekend has a couple of films that some have subdued excitement about. There's a film called Criminal that does star Kevin Costner, Gary Oldman, Ryan Reynolds, Gal Gadot, Alice Eve, and Tommy Lee Jones. A big eclectic cast, but we know nothing about the film so far. And that weekend also has the Sinister sequel, that is Sinister 2. The first film did receive a lot of good response, so I can certainly see why a lot of people want to see this film. Once again, having a horror film come out in this month, there hasn't been, you tend to see one every month, every other month. I don't necessarily think people will be sick of Insidious or Poltergeist just as yet. This film will do successfully well, it will end up doing well, but I don't think we've seen enough of it or know much about it for it to really be, or for us to really speculate or say what the potential response could be, whether financially or critically. Finally, August 28th, Hitman Agent 47. The first Hitman, of course, did not receive the best of buzz, and this trailer looks fine. It looks like the film is a lot of fun. It does have some interesting beats of action based off the original video game, of course, and I'll probably end up watching it. I have a feeling that I will. I have a feeling that this will draw in some audience. It will cap off the summer season interestingly, although it doesn't look like it's going to be the best of films. It does certainly look like it's going to be a fun film, and I think that the audiences that we have nowadays are certainly now embracing the idea that a film doesn't necessarily have to be the best, but it can still have a lot of fun. With regards to, say, Furious 7, most of the audience going in were aware of the fact that this is not going to be, say, the best film of the year or anything, and nor do I believe it is. But they went in going for a fun time and action full time. Certainly why some of the Transformers films are successful. And I think after Fantastic Four, you don't really have a big action film coming out for a whole 3 weeks. So maybe Hitman Agent 47 could certainly get the traction that it might or might not deserve and really pick up a big audience. Nonetheless, these 4 months are certainly always exciting to look at. Everyone's on holiday, and ultimately it's a big financial event, if you will, the summer season with regards to films, and yet brings about not only some of the most exciting and large-scale films, but yet some of the films that tend to be the best, surprisingly enough, by the end of the year. And that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to finding those gems in the summer of 2015.